Welcome to the Sweet Time to Find podcast. Today we have Jeff Lee. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on. It's always good to have highly esteemed guests and guest friend of the podcast, James Ramsey, hounding me to bring you on. So of course, gotta
I think
bring
it's
you
awesome.
on as well.
I love this group, man. It was funny there how it kind of got morphed into something it wasn't there for a little while. But I mean, there's tons of great conversation inside there, and it's I've been lucky to be able to contribute to it, so it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a free Facebook group for anyone listening. Combat sports discussion. You can just search that on Facebook, and it's just a whole lot of stuff going on in there. But for people who aren't too familiar with you, Jeff, do you want to give a brief background about yourself, what you do, any of your past, coaching accolades?
Yeah, so I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. Went to Western Illinois for college. Didn't play any sports. I was a 6'1", 250-pound basketball center in high school, and nobody has a damn need for anybody like that at the college level. But always loved lifting weights. Like I went to a basketball camp in northern Iowa when I was like 12. I think I was between 12 and 13. And they were nice enough to tell a fat kid, you should lift weights. And so that started off some things. I owned a soda machine at my dad's shop, and that was like my first business, And I used that to buy my first weightlifting equipment. It was a Weider double stack weight set. I wore the thing out in 3 months, and they replaced it for me. So that's kind of what got me started. But after Western Illinois University, got my bachelor's in exercise science. I went to Binghamton University, did an internship with their athletic program. Met my wife there, and then I was on to Northern Michigan University, where they had the Olympic Training Center up there. And I started there training boxers, assisted with Greco wrestling. And it was just a real eye-opening opportunity because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I had to figure it out because I had no mentorship. I was 22 going up there. So just learned as much as I could, as fast as I could. And from there, I went down to the Citadel, was a GA there for a year, worked with men's basketball, track and field, golf, and assisted with football and baseball. After that, I went to Yale for 2 years, was the top assistant there, trained 13 teams. And that brought me to my first head job, which is Canisius College up in Buffalo, New York. And like, it was awesome. Met one of my best friends up there. Like, he was my assistant there for a year. It was the most fun year I've ever had. That I could, up to that point at least. And I went to Southeast Missouri State after that for 3 years. I was the director there. Made the move to Southeast because my wife got into dental school at the University of Louisville, and it's like, well, it's a long way from Buffalo to Louisville. But Missouri is something that we can definitely make work. And that in 2011, I walked away. I turned in my papers to 10 days before I left. I had a baby born in Louisville 10 days after that. So
wow.
It was purely a family decision to get out of things. And but I've always loved strength and conditioning. It's one of those things where, like, when you're in it, you kind of bitch about the hours and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out. And the second I was out, I was just miserable. Like it was the one thing that I found that I loved more than anything else. And it took me several years to find something else. But during that path of that several years, met back up with a good friend, Johnny Buck, who runs Road Combat Club down in Asheville, North Carolina. And he was getting out of Bellator and he wanted to start making some runs at jiu-jitsu in terms of world championships and whatnot. So I got him ready for his first one. It was a purple belt for under Gracie. He won that thing pretty easily. But I trained him through that entire process. I also picked up his top guy in the gym, started training him for free. That guy just skyrocketed. Picked up Matt Scaff, who's works down in 10th Planet, Huntsville. Picked him up for a little while, got him ready for ADCCs. And then I kind of realized, I'm getting pretty good at this online thing. Let's start making it a business. I had a pattern at that point. It was easy to go off of. Like I had a nice system of check-ins and check-outs, and it just, dude, it was awesome. And it kind of brought me to today. I've got a guy, Deuce Carter. He's over at Muay Thai Worlds right now. He's getting ready to tear them up.
Nice.
I've got a PGF guy who's just filthy. He told me the other day, he's like, if we had started probably 3 months sooner, I think I could have made us some serious damage at PGF, because he's like, I'm just blown away right now what I was doing before. But basically, it's concentrated loading. It's the balance between power and capacity of the system, and that's what makes everything work. But strength and conditioning is the coolest thing in my mind. And I think a lot of people, once you get into like physical culture and you start to learn about lifting weights and you start to learn what levers to pull, dude, like so many doors open in your life that you never even knew that you had. So
yeah, it's funny you mentioned about you're in it and the hours. Like, we must have talked on this podcast with various guests about, I mean, everyone has similar experiences. You're like, you get sick of all the politics, the shit pay, the shit hours. But the thing that keeps you there is when you're with a team, you're working with the same people towards the same goal every year, and you're on the field when I was working with our New Zealand women's rugby league team, like being on the field with 46,000 fans, where like if we were standing next to each other and you can't hear, you yelling at each other, you can't hear because it's so damn loud. And when you win that, like it's like nothing beats it when you win championships and stuff. And then after that, then you're like, oh yeah, there's still all the other bullshit that goes on. But then once you're online, obviously you can start to do your own thing. And with family, it makes more sense than traveling around and being in different camps. So I feel you on that for sure.
Yeah. Like as a head guy, like my prerequisites going into that was I will not travel, period. And I told him that. It's like, look, I got family in another state. I'm here for these teams that are here. Like one of my biggest regrets was, at Southeast Missouri football, like we went from being 2-9 the previous season. That was in 2009. And in 2010, we were 9-2. And we went to playoffs. And the funny thing was we go up into Carbondale, Illinois, play Southern Illinois University, and they're supposed to thrash us. They opened up a new stadium. Like they're ready to go. We went up there and we beat them. We got a police escort taking our guys home. And half the guys are like, oh, are we in trouble? What did we do wrong? Like, guys, you won a game. Like, that's a big game. And like that right there to springboard them. So it's amazing what you could see in terms of their confidence, because as a coach what they're physically capable of. It's sometimes for them, they need a win to flip that switch inside their heads to be like, oh crap, like they're not just bullshitting me. It's not just something he wants to say. It's not some like little tagline. It's like it's all inside of you, and it's all in here. All we got to do is just bring it out of them. We got to bring the dog out of them.
And your strength and conditioning philosophy, I'd love to dive into it. You mentioned about balancing the power capacity. I believe block periodization underpins a lot of your training models. So I'm going to leave it to you to kind of go into we can just start with the strength training side, just so we don't go too all over the place, and we can get to conditioning afterwards. So let's just start with, say, in the gym strength training side, how does your philosophy look for that for combat sports?
I am not married to anything. I'll use machines if they have machines. I use kettlebells if they got kettlebells. It's body weight. I'm not married to anything, because all it means is to the eventual goal. But if you ask me what my preference is we're going to bench, we're going to squat, we're going to deadlift. And most days of the week we do, a circuit or two. Whether there's the circuits for actual development of the aerobic system, or if it's just for recovery. Those are two different edges of the same sword, But if you're trying to really push the threshold of the aerobic system, like heart rates are high and it's not as comfortable as a recovery session. But, most of my guys, they bench, squat, or deadlift every week. Some variation of it. I don't care if it's a trap bar. I don't care if it's sumo. I don't care if it's modified sumo. I don't care if it's a rack pull. But you just have to get stronger, because a lot of the guys just are not strong enough.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of them have they've got motors on them, but even that you have to train the motor in such a way to where they know how to flip it on, flip it off, know how to gear up and gear down. And that's probably the hardest part for a lot of them, because a lot of guys just come in and all they know is effort, especially if you get collegiate wrestlers. And they move into combat sports, all they know is go hard. And so at that point, you need to teach them. I go off of a modified system. I'm getting into the energy system part here, but I go off of a modified gear system, like through Shift Adapt. I don't know if you've ever heard of Shift Adapt. It's Brian McKenzie's business.
I think so.
But they have a 5-gear system. like gear 1 is like we're talking right now. It's comfortable. It's nasal breathing. Gear 2 to 3 is ratcheting it up a little bit, like with the intensity. 4 is nasal in, mouth out, and 5 is survival breathing. I've cut it all down to we're 4 gears, and I rarely touch gear 4, which is survival breathing. So gear 1 is we're comfortable. Usually we're 100 beats per minute or under in terms of heart rate. Gear 2 is still nasal in, nasal out, but it's more forced. And then gear 3 is that nasal in, mouth out. And we use that to show them when you need to push, that's the one you want to push, because you don't want to have your mouth open and get knocked out. But at the same time, if you need to bring your heart rate down between rounds, that's the fastest way to do it. So yeah, that's part of it. And then once I've got guys into that gear system, everything just takes off. It's pretty crazy to see. And it usually takes them 4 or 5 weeks. And they're like, I can't breathe through my nose. I've got a deviated septum. All right, well, this is what you do. You got to force it even harder. And when you do that, you find out the recovery is a lot better. The sleep is better and whatnot. But I don't know if I answered your question fully there, but
I got more questions, so we'll just keep going through them, and we'll get down this conditioning route since you went there. So with this gear system and the conditioning, so how are you structuring that in a week?
Almost every week we'll have some form of steady state cardio. Mm-hmm. And you told me you've talked to Mark McLaughlin before, and he goes over that pretty extensively, and just the adaptations of the heart and being able to provide elasticity of the left ventricle so you don't have to work as hard. So that's in there for one day. Also facilitates recovery. And then it kind of just bounces between some things, depending on what block we're in. If we're in an aerobic block, we're going to do a longer interval day. We're going to do a shorter interval day, but it's all forced through gear 2. Gotcha. As we get into like alactic power or alactic capacity, my aerobic blocks are anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. Just depends on where they're at. In terms of just acts, we do some baseline testing. Like I want to know what your 12-minute run time is. I want to know what your heart rate recovery is. But between that and the next 2 minutes out, that kind of tells me a lot. And I also do 300-yard shuttles with them because I want to know how fast they can come down. And if it doesn't come down very fast, then I know it's going to be a longer aerobic block.
And that's like your kind of like base building.
Yep.
Kind of.
Yep.
Yep.
And the block system itself, building strength and building aerobic ability go hand in hand. So we can get super strong during that period, build a good level of base conditioning, and then all right, well, now we're into alactic power, alactic capacity, which the difference between that is just your rest periods. Alactic power, like I don't know if you're familiar with, I don't know how to say his last name, but Mladen Jovanovic.
Yep.
Okay, so he's one of those guys where I read he was saying that alactic power training is kind of useless in terms of like combat sports or even field sports. I don't think that, merely because I don't think people know how to concentrate their effort for those rounds hard enough. So you teach the effort first through power, give them full recovery, then you get into capacity, which is probably another 2 weeks later, and that capacity block can go anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Just depends. We just gradually work up the rest period. Work up our work periods, bring down our rest periods, and usually we'll end up with something like 12 seconds of pop, and it's 20 seconds rest, and it's two series of 5 sets of that, and by that point they're ready to rock.
So with your block model then, so you're going, say this base building phase, you're doing, I guess, longer efforts and lower intensity efforts. When you go into your, we'll just call it, a power phase just to make it easier. Are you then, you don't do anything that you've done previously in that original phase and the power phase is just the power work? Or some of that, lower level aerobic work still being done during that power phase?
We still keep some aerobic work in there for the residual aspect.
Okay.
Like some of it might be hill sprints. It really just depends on what the guy's makeup is, what they're good at. But some guys, I know their recovery is shit. So we have to have something in there to bring down intensity because weights are still high. Weights are still creeping during this time. Like our poundages are going up, 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 up. Our jump volume starting to go up, 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 up. Like it all kind of layers on top of each other. And if they're not able to recover, then we got a problem. So it's kind of I've got a really good system where they tell me exactly what they are, and I see videos every week. And it's if things don't look better, it's dude, we're knocking this down a bit.
Yeah,
They just have to know it and have to understand it.
Yeah, and then with the strength training, from the articles you have, is it triphasic inspired or what you got going on there?
We will do some triphasic work. It's usually way down the road.
Maybe explain that just for the listeners.
So your triphasic work, there's two models. There's a strength model, there's a power model. The strength model is 80% and above in terms of intensity. Your power model is somewhere between 60 and 80%. 80 the top percentage will always be your middle day. So your highest volume is the third day, your medium volume is the first day, your heaviest volume is day 2, but that's not under the triphasic model. That's just go out and just hit weights. That's how I use it. So anyway, you go through an isometric period, which is going to be 2 to 3 second pauses. No, excuse me. Eccentric period goes first. I wrote an article on this in 2011 because we did this with 6 guys and like 4th and 5th year guys, and our squats went up 60 pounds in 6 weeks. Like, it was stupid. Like, I had guys squatting over 500 pounds at that point, and I had one that was $180, and he just exploded during that time. But anyway, 6 seconds on the eccentrics over the first 2 weeks. Then you're going to have a 2 to 3 second pause for isometrics at the bottom of every lift, weeks 3 and 4. And then it's kind of like a ballistic drop and pop. That's how I've used the last 2 weeks of that model. And it's awesome. Like, we might use box squats. We might use some different things as well, like weight releasers too. Just depends on what I got available. But it's so cool. Like, just to see guys' performance just flip like that. I've used it for several combat guys, and it's amazing how fast and how strong they can get during that period. And that completely changes the layout for a lot of them, because it's like, strength is the one thing that you cannot outdo. I'm sorry. If you and I are the same technical proficiency in what we're doing, and I'm stronger than you are, I've got an edge against you. And I know it too. So it's a psychological thing as well for these guys. But we've used some triphasic stuff. A lot of times it's just basic step loading. Just keep moving up. It's all right, 5 to 10 pounds in the lower body stuff. We might increase by 2.5 to 5 pounds on the upper body stuff. But little bitty changes go a long way over a lifetime. And these guys, that's all they've got. They've got a limited span in their particular sport. But hell, we got 90-year-old guys doing jiu-jitsu. Like, you got the rest of your life. You can get your face beat up for a few years, but you got the rest of your life. So let's use this training and this really build a base.
So how does that look, or that progression look, say through your base cycle and then into your power cycle?
Yeah, it really just depends. I will set up RPEs to begin, no matter what block we're in. I'll tell them, I want you to leave 3 or 4 reps in the tank week 1, no matter what. And they don't really know what that means yet.
Yeah.
So that's where, the art of coaching comes in. And you're like, all right, well, now I can start to move your weights. And like by week 6 or 7, like, we're moving some pretty good poundages. And a lot of times I like to use kind of like a conjugate rotation of things. Like, we will back squat, or most guys I'll start with a goblet squat, just because I want to shore up some things, make some technical things.
Yeah.
So there we'll go from that to a box squat, and from a box squat to a back squat, and from a back squat to maybe a Zercher squat. This depends on what it is that I see on them that's a weak link. Lower back is weak. All right, we're going to Zercher squat for a little while. You're slow out of the hole, we're in a box squat. I mean, a lot of things depend on that. And you look at what their jumps look like as well. The jumps will start off with basic box jumps, and we're going to get into some things where, like, maybe up, down, ups, and depth jumping, things like that will come along later on as the intensity ratchets up. But I try not to make our conditioning negatively impacting the strength work, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to do kettlebell squat jumps with you for 12 sets of it and use that as my lactic capacity work, and then say, all right, well, now you're going to go jump a 48-inch box. It doesn't make any sense. So that might end up being in there at some point during the week, but we work with what we have, and we try to reduce the amount of stress overall. It's basic low dose model, because you give them just enough to make them move, and we go on from there.
And then through the power cycle, it's a similar approach, just trying to add weight to the bar.
Yep, same way.
So the only thing that differs in that cycle is you're maybe adding more jumps, throws, etc. during that period?
It can be, but if we're talking about conditioning builds everything. Conditioning is our base. If we're talking about alactic system, that's that short-term burst. That's a creatine phosphate system. All right. So that's the basis. I want to get my conditioning done first on that. So I like bike sprints. I like those ski ergs. I like something that involves a lot of musculature, but it's not going to zap you for the strength work.
Gotcha.
We will. Does that kind of make sense? Everything is based.
So you're using that as your power based movements.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
So.
and then you obviously use carry on with your strength based movements through that cycle. Do you want to maybe just give an example of how a general program would look in each block? I think it would be good for the listeners, even myself, just kind of visualize how it looks like it's set out.
So are you familiar with the tier system?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay, so it's a 3-day model. Each day has its own influence. So like a total body day would be your deadlift day, or if you're an Olympic guy, it would be your main clean day. So you're going to do a total body movement, then you're going to do an upper body and a lower body. I like to do a lot of circuited type work. I enjoy that because we just get a lot more done. So we're going to do supersets. We'll do some trisets. We'll do a lot of stuff to get a lot of work done. But say day one, it's going to be a trap bar deadlift. We'll work up to a heavy set of 5. You'll pair that up with a pull up each time, and we'll work our pull up volume up during that time as well. Then we'll do some kind of horizontal press. It's not going to be our main movement press. It's going to be something that builds that. So maybe a 2-board press or a 3-board or rack lockout, something fun like that. And we'll do some heavy rowing on top of that. Then some single leg work that'll pretty much put a wrap on it, aside from some core work. Your day 2 is, I always think that's my bench day. So my main bench movement, all right, let's just call it a 2-grip bench. So it's thumb without from the groove. We're going to get a heavy set of 5 again. Pair that up with a heavy row, barbell row. Then we'll do maybe a front squat or a Zercher squat, something that's going to help build the first day, but help build our actual main movement for lower body. And then we'll do a total body movement again. Might be a good morning. It might be a seated good morning. I don't really care. It's just something that's going to build a weak link that the athlete has.
Yeah.
And then day 3 would be, it's always Big Squat Friday, man. That's the day they got to live for. And with a lot of my combat guys, I found that using like a double kettlebell front squat is something that's huge for them. Because it's like, if I had known what I know now about kettlebells, and when I was at the college scene, we would have had like actual standards set for what you need to do. Like I think most linemen could probably double kettlebell front squat a pair of 125s. And that would be pretty freaking awesome. Like that would be the standard, and we would work towards the standard.
Do you have any for combat athletes?
Not that heavy. But I really don't have a standard on it. It's just because a lot of these guys don't have the available equipment.
Yeah.
So we can only go so heavy, but whatever you got, man, we're working towards, multiple reps, sets of 10 at the heaviest thing that you have. And then I ask them to go out and buy more. But like I say, with our main lower body day, that's a preferred one because you get so much bang for the buck out of it. But other than that, we back squat, we can front squat. It's really whatever I see within them that's a weakness we need to cure from a physical side, and we'll work from there. Because that's what a lot of it's based around. Your strength training should maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses at all times. This should be the only thing you're looking to do. And I think a lot of times people get wrapped up in this sport-specific training aspect of it. Like weights are general, and they will always be general in terms of the development of an athlete, unless you're an Olympic weightlifter, unless you're a track and field thrower, unless you're a bodybuilder. Like your weights are general preparation for your body. And that's something I think a lot of people get skewed. Your conditioning,
especially when you see what's on Instagram.
Yeah, it's so like come on. Like a lot of the stuff I see is just no. You're majoring in the minors here. Like just get them stronger, get them more capable, and then the conditioning aspect will take care of itself. And from a conditioning aspect, I'll say this part right now. Like the last 4 weeks, I want to pull out a lot of the stuff that we do on equipment and allow the mats to kind of take over. I'll give parameters, but I want the mat work to kind of take precedent, because now we're able to pull back even more. And that's part of the peaking phase, is just being able to, the harder I can push you at first, and the more I can start to pull back towards the end, the better they peak. Like my philosophy as a football strength coach was always, I told these guys, and they thought I was nuts. I said, guys, if you're not pissing blood by August, we have a problem. And of course I was full of shit, but it's like, this is going to be hell. Because I know once we pull back in August and we don't touch weights for a month, everything's going to go straight up. And it's kind of had that same philosophy with these guys. And over the years, I've learned from some mistakes I've made. I've learned I can't push as far as I want to sometimes. But that's okay, because there's, we have another cycle still coming.
How much are you pulling back the strength training then during that peaking phase?
Like, all right, let's talk about Deuce, who's fighting in Muay Thai Worlds. We went from a 3-day model, and at 4 weeks out, we pulled him down to 2. And the 2 went from a 45-minute session to 30 minutes.
Gotcha.
So we would just go in. We would do, like, his last 3 weeks was just like this. We would, there was no conditioning on top of anything. It was do your jump work. We would do like a contrast style with the jump work, like single leg box jumps, go hit a heavy trap bar deadlift, do an up, down, up on the box. That's a set. We would do 4 to 5 sets, work up to a heavy single. And then after that, it was just band pull aparts and some rows and, a couple sets of push-ups. So comparing that, that's not a whole lot. But right now, dude made weight yesterday. He's ready to roll.
Yeah, I like that. And so you mentioned a lot how you do a lot of step loading, and it sounds like, so you'd like to mainly work up just to one heavy set of 1 to 5 on most lifts. That's like your main working sets.
Yep. And I've always used that. My boss, when I was at Yale, taught me that. It's like the only thing you need to watch is that last set. But he didn't mean that like that, but it's like that's the one, that's the money maker, and you want to make sure that they hit that. And then, all right, it's either we stay, we're +5, or we're +10. That's how you start things for next week. And it's a model that has never failed me. And
you're pushing that last set close-ish to failure?
We're about a RPE 9.5.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Like with Deuce, I pushed him a little too hard 2 weeks out. He missed a 315 trap bar deadlift for a single. So I was like, okay, we probably should have pulled back, kept it 300. But hell, the 2 weeks before that, he was at 345 and just ripping it. This dude weighs 135 pounds. So, like, he's strong.
Yeah. So I'm assuming there's a lot of auto regulation as well, then, right? Because obviously you mentioned 1 week is 345, next week you didn't pull 315. So you you're watching bar speed and how they are and things like that too. So it's
I don't have a metric on it. I don't have a speed on it, but the eye test tells you.
I mean, you can eye it. Like when you're watching enough people, you see that bar speed, you know how many more they got.
yeah, for sure. Like I saw that 300 set. I'm like, all right, you got 315 easy. He's like, nah, man. I think a lot of it was the stress building up to it, and but there's some other things that inside of our heads, we don't think about, but inside their heads, like, I got to travel, I got to pack, I got to do this, my girlfriend about that, and there's James Smith always talked about that. The thinker from the old Elite FTS days.
He's got the Governing Dynamics of Coaching is probably one of the best coaching and strength conditioning books.
Is it? I don't have that one. I've got a lot of his stuff though.
Yeah, you got to get that one. That one's legit.
Okay. Can I tell you a funny story about him?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So I had a GA that I pulled from Pitt, and he was under James mostly, but he was under Buddy also.
Yeah.
And Buddy calls me right back up and gives me a reference on him. Buddy was awesome to talk to, just straightforward. James left me a 3-minute voicemail that ended up getting cut off. He's talking about this book of, sorry, it took me so long. I've got this book I'm writing with Randy Couture and like this and that. And he's going on and on, and it finally cuts him off. And I tell this to my athletic trainer, I was like, listen to this thing. And then like a week later, the book got pulled because Randy Couture is like, I don't train like this. Which is, it's just sad, but James is like one of the smartest dudes I've ever spoken to. It's unreal.
Well, he's hard to listen to because he talks so bloody up here, and you're like, damn man, get to the point. But his books are legit. I really enjoy his philosophy of training in there.
Yep. It's awesome. He's got this preparation for special operations, like SEAL training.
I haven't got that one.
It's very good because it's mostly talks about how you build up running volume and how you build up calisthenic volume, and it's a case study of one of his guys. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to look for that one too. Yeah, he's for anyone listening who's maybe in the coaching space or whatever, definitely check out James Smith's books. He's got quite a few. Applied Sprint Training was one of the other ones that
I've got that one too.
Enjoyed the most, especially in rugby and things. That was solid. But James Ramsey also, he was mentioning that you used the Zercher squat as an indicator exercise for an Olympic silver medalist. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when I was at the US OEC, we were led by a coach named Ivan Ivanov. And Ivan was out of Bulgaria. I believe he's the head national coach right now for Greco for the US, I believe. But Ivan took some guys and like he made some freaks. Like there used to be an old US OEC video that you could find, which is like a training clip of them. YouTube, for some reason, doesn't have it anymore. But tons of jumps, heavy lifts. I mean, like these guys were ridiculously strong. There was a guy named Spencer Mango who I saw, he competed, I believe, at like 133, 137, somewhere in there. Zercher squat at 365 for a single. Like this, like strong, like, and these guys could, like, it was one of the indicator exercises he looked at. And like Ivan was true, what we know in the States now is conjugate, true conjugate, not West Side conjugate, not, any of these other bastardizations. Like I have my own version of bastardized conjugate. But
do you want to maybe just explain the differences there?
So there's a sequencing system. Like you're going to train exclusively for, you compound skills on top of each other. So with him, they would have a general conditioning phase, they would have a maximal strength phase, and then they would have a speed power phase. Speed power always led into competitions for them, like major competitions. So during that time, they would back off weights entirely. And when you ask them about it, well, they throw each other all the time. What's more powerful than that? Valid point. But the strength work, like these guys were ridiculously strong. Like I said, that's one of their indicator exercises for them was Zercher squat. And it was like a 2-minute rope climb off your butt, arms only. There's another one. And he had VO2 max, I believe, was in there too. And there might have been another. So don't quote me all entirely on this because it's been a lot of beers between now and 2003. But the funny thing about the speed power one, he got this this band system in to try out. He designed it, had this guy bring it in, prototyped it for him. And I went up and I trained with him that day. And this thing was like 500 pounds of tension on this, bars on your back. And he's screaming at me, and I'm just looking. I'm at the bottom of this squat. I just look at him. I'm like, Yvonne, now is not the time. But he's like, but you know how it feels, though. If this is what a match feels like, it's like this is very valid. Like those are things that really stuck with me. But like I said, the Zercher squat is something I've used with combat guys. I've used them with every athlete that I've ever had because it shores up core weaknesses so quickly. But if you talk about like a Greco guy, it makes perfect sense. You have to throw somebody. You're kind of in that position already with the Zercher. So why wouldn't you get as strong as you could in that position? So that's my piece on that. But I've got a guy. I'll post a video on my Instagram here in a little bit. But he sent me a video yesterday of him Zercher box squatting 315 for a single, and it's a speedy single. I'm sorry, a triple, 3 reps. He's $160. Cool. So, like, it's nasty. I'm gonna put it up today, and if you get a chance to take a look at it, I think you would enjoy it. But it's speedy. It's after some jumps as well. The dude is strong. Again, collegiate wrestler. He's my PGF guy, but
gotcha.
Very, very strong.
Is there a certain standard you're typically looking for with the Zercher squat, or
Nope.
no? You're
Nope.
just trying to get as strong as possible.
We're just every movement
Yeah.
you just try to get as strong as you can. You
Yeah.
just try to maximize what you've got. Rotate movements. Come back to it later. All right, this is where we were before. Let's try to beat it.
Gotcha.
And just so our system of records is pretty good because we know where things are or where we left things the last time. So
okay.
So it's kind of
yeah,
like
I'm understanding. Yep.
kind of like the old Louis Simmons had the board,
Mm-hmm.
big board, and all these guys at different weight classes did this on this lift. Like it's kind of the same thing. It's like this is what you did before. Let's beat it. And you never start them off where they ended. You start them off where you maybe 90% of that, and then 3 weeks down the road they crush it, and they're like, "Hey, look at what you did the last time. Here's that last video. Take a look at this." And they're like, "Holy shit!"
So you're doing like 3 weeks. So obviously, like West Side Conjugate, they've changed exercises almost every week, but you're doing almost say every 3 weeks. You're say building up that
Maybe a little longer.
exercise, step loading it.
Maybe a little longer. I will milk it till I think we've milked it enough.
Okay.
Like
and you're obviously just working up to the heavy 1 to 5 in all those weeks or whatever it is. And then once you think, okay, that's enough, then you move to a new exercise with the same pattern, then another new one, then you might come back to it. And those 2 exercises hopefully build enough strength to improve that other one. Okay.
Yep. So everything's about, like I said before, minimizing weaknesses. And the system works. I mean, you can look at these guys in the various positions they're in from different lifts, and you can see how the improvements happen. Like it's crazy. Like a Zercher squat will improve your back squat. I don't care what anybody says. When you have improved lower back and front side strength, it's going to only go up because the legs aren't going to get weaker from doing them. If anything else, you've become more stable by Zercher squatting or even by front squatting. You could front squat your ass off for 8 weeks and then go back to a back squat, and I guarantee you within 3 weeks you'll crush that previous back squat. So
I'm going to do some Zercher squats later this week. I think I'm inspired. Does your not overall philosophy, but does your exercise selection or maybe how you train differ at all between say wrestlers and maybe more striking based athletes?
That's a good question. I think I'd like to say yes, but also there's a no to it. A lot of it really just depends on where they at. Like if you're weak in comparison to body weight, then things need to improve.
Yeah.
And nothing improves things faster than just getting stronger. You ever work with like collegiate basketball players or like 20-year-old basketball players?
Not basketball, no.
Okay. Like a lot of these guys come in with 46, 48-inch verticals. Like, 1-2 step approach to it. And then you realize they've never touched a weight in their entire life. What have they done a lot of? Well, they've done a lot of jumping. That's very clear. So what is going to improve that the fastest is improving the thing that they're the worst at. So they're really bad. They're really great at force generation, but they're really bad at straining through weights and actually moving something that's somewhat heavy. So once you kind of bring an equilibrium to that, the power of their jumps are going to go up regardless, but they're also going to be a lot more durable. So I kind of look at strikers kind of the same way as grapplers in that way, in that you need to improve the thing that you're worst at first. Because again, with my PGF guy, he came to me and pretty strong. Like a guy could bench 240. He's Zercher squatted 275 on a video he'd sent me prior to us working together. But I look at him and like your back is weak. I told him from the start, your backside weak. He didn't really understand what that meant, but it's like your entire back half you've never trained. Like your hamstrings, your glutes, all these things. But you're a wrestler, so everything's forward all the time. And now the guy did a set of 10 with pull-ups yesterday with me. Sent me a video, hit 9 reps with 15 pounds added.
Nice.
He couldn't do 9 reps when we started with anything. So it's like as you begin to improve your weaknesses, everything else goes up. So, and I think that's an approach I'm not sure a lot of people take, and maybe they do, and maybe I'm just naive to this because I don't talk to a lot of coaches anymore. I read a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's I don't really talk to a lot of guys that are in the trenches and are doing this and really trying to move the needle with your guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of social media coaches for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
that maybe haven't got the experience or anything behind them, and have the big followings already, and
yeah,
that's
and that's
kind of
okay.
their business. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm okay with that, but don't expect to make lemonade from a bucket of apples and tell me that it tastes the same.
No, exactly, and one more question for you. You talked about training residuals
Yep.
before, and for anyone listening, that's just essentially how long a quality can essentially last from not training it. So you mentioned how you kind of bring some of that lower intensity stimulus across your power cycle because of that. I guess how else are you using that information within your training?
I use that old chart from Ishrin out of the block periodization book, and with aerobic work, we need to tap it at least once a month when we're out of it, but we never really go that long. Before a competition, I'm going to cut it out for a week before, except for maybe a walk. And I don't look at that as training. I look at that as being a human and being mobile. But other than that, like I try to make sure that we hit something heavy. If we're in a power block where weights are lower, go in and hit something heavy, 2 or 3 weeks down the road, just make sure it's still there. And then we can go back to what we're doing. But a lot of things still follow that basic step loading model, where maybe the power work might come from a more intense jump, or just going back and hitting something that you know you can hit, like a depth jump into a broad jump. All right, we'll do that and go out and hit as far as you can. One rep's all we need, because they're still getting power work on the mats, they're still getting in the ring. All these things are still present, because in the sport is always fast. If it's not, you are up shit creek. Like if you're not explosive and you're not on, then we have a problem. More from a technical side on your aspect, because you're being hesitant, you're going to get yourself hurt. But from a strength work, again, applying it maybe 2-3 weeks out. Make sure we hit a single, maybe a double. Make sure we still got it. But other than that, like the aerobic work is the one that I think is probably the most important. Like Joel Jamieson's talked about this a lot, is the aerobic system being the most underdeveloped and probably the most bastardized of all, because they want to show you these pictures of marathoners while ignoring pictures of Ben Johnson, who did aerobic work twice a week, for going on a decade with Charlie Francis, but they want to ignore that. But it's, the skinny marathoner. Like, no. It all comes down to application of it. Again, we can go out and we could hit 10 hill sprints. That's a residual tap. You could go out and do high intensity continuous tension, which is, the real slow work on the bike where the intensity is cranked up. Like, dude, that'll tap a reserve. Like, there's all sorts of things that you can do to make sure that the quality maintains itself. To where, so to answer your question fully, I use residuals. They're always in there at some point. But it just depends on where we're at and what phase we're in. To give you a concrete answer of how I've used it in the last week, can't really do it. Because some residuals always in there for something though.
Yeah, and some things obviously carry over to other things as well within that too. So there's, I guess you're always training all the different qualities. And I love the low volume approach too. I think most fighters, if they're trying to train themselves, probably go far too high volume, especially when most of the readily available information is kind of like bodybuilding-esque style training. So a lot of people come in doing, sets of 8+ reps all the time. Hard circuits, just blasting themselves in the gym, but not actually training strength.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there are different types of strength. Like I listen to a lot of bodybuilding podcasts because I enjoy the personalities more than anything. But Dusty Hanshaw is one of the guys. He was an IFBB bodybuilder, pro and whatnot. But he talks about being strong at every range. It could be 1 to 3, could be 6 to 8, could be 10 to 15, it could be 30. You should be fully capable of all things at all times. Now am I going to train you in all these different volumes and all these different ranges all the time? No, because that would be counterintuitive. Probably not productive. But you need to be strong across all ranges, I think, because you just don't know what you're going to encounter. Like Mark McLaughlin uses oxidative work quite a bit. In the base building aspect of strength training for us, oxidative work is almost always in there for upper body and lower body, because it brings our curve up so fast on the aerobic end that it would be silly of me not to try it, especially with a guy that I know has a match coming up, and I know it's longer in duration. It's a 10-minute match, 10-minute round, or it could be an unlimited match. Like my guy Johnny Buck, it was in Catch Wrestling Worlds. He was in a 44-minute match.
Fuck.
That's brutal.
Yep.
but he was prepared. If he wasn't prepared, he couldn't have gone 44 minutes.
Yeah.
But oxidative work was a huge part of that, because we just didn't
oxidative
know.
work, you're talking like tempo, eccentric, tempo, concentric.
2 down, 2 up.
Yeah.
No lockout. Do that. And for push-ups, it works great. Inverted rows, it works great. Bench press, it works great. Squats, it works exceptionally well, because it hits so many things. And high intensity continuous tension is another one that gets overlooked too, because it's super hard. It's just brutal. But if you get yourself on a Versa climber and you do that for 10 minutes at a set, like you're gonna be in shape, because it hits everything. Like there's nothing that is left untouched.
I used to use that on the bike often with teams that I work with. We would actually do it we'd play the match Saturday, and we'd do it on the Monday as part of the like lower level conditioning. But for some reason, like legs felt awesome afterwards. We'd just do two sets of 10 minutes, and their legs would feel amazing. Like after a hard, like, so it was like the perfect thing to do is like a recovery / conditioning element done, and it's off feet, so you're not getting any impact. It was solid.
I was always told it was a mitochondrial regeneration thing, especially after a lactic day. And to me, it makes sense.
Yeah, it was nice. I think the players liked it, and it's something people can definitely use in their training. I think that's everything I had for you there, Jeff. Plug where people can find you and follow you and keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, man. We're at Monstrositus on Instagram.
That's the hardest name. Spell it for them. I'll link it in the description too.
Yeah. MONSTRONG. Oh my God. My spelling is off, man. Monstrositus. MONSTROUSITOUS. Monstrositus.
Okay, yeah. I see now.
Yeah, that word came from my first assistant. He'd come in every day. He'd be like, Lee, we going to get Monstrositus today or what? It's like, yeah. So that was my tribute to him. He passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, man.
But he had lymphoma. And,
damn. Sorry.
So this is my tribute to him, is to name the business after him, because he's one of those stand-up dudes. And I don't think I would know half the stuff I know if he hadn't come along, because he linked me up with Dave Tate, the lead FTS, and Jim Windler. If I would never have known half the stuff I know if Keith hadn't come along, because he would train with Vincent DeCenzo's crew up in New Haven when he was in school up there. So like he knew all these guys, and it was like, man, he just showed me this one day, and like my mind is like opens, like the third eye in your head like opens, like, oh crap, there's so much more out there. Like there's so much more out there, and it's not all like during those days. It was T Nation was where you went, and like like it had some good stuff. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it had some great stuff, but Elite has been pretty awesome. I've been fortunate to have a couple articles that I've written be published there too, so it's been pretty cool. Nice.
Yeah, actually, I published one 8 years ago now on Elite. Yeah. Yeah, it's I actually just got an Elite FTS safety squat bar, got the yoke bar. That's epic. I love it,
It is built. It's built for life.
Yep.
All their stuff is.
Exactly. Now, perfect, Jeff. I appreciate you coming on. I'll link up everything in the description for people to follow. And cheers for the chat.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate this opportunity, man. Great talking to you. Great linking up.
Cheers.